Hello and welcome to a little Tiny Dragon Fireside chat. I'm Matt, the community director here at Tiny Dragon, and I'm here with the wonderful Sam and Dan, the two-man dev team at Magical Something, and we're here to talk about IKARUS. And if you're watching this stream, this means that Next Fest is live. You can go download the demo right now. In fact, go do that and then come back. It means that you can go wishlist the game. It means the game's going to be out pretty soon. We haven't dropped a release date just yet, but yeah, I've brought Sam and Dan together so we can have a nice little chat about all things IKARUS, all things shoot 'em up, all things deck builder, and yeah, just get into this amazing, fantastic, awesome mashup of fairly, I would say, kind of fairly disparate genres. But yeah, first of all, what's up, guys? How's it going? How you doing?
Hello, hello.
How does it feel? How does it feel
Hello.
to sort of be quite close to, quite close to, I suppose, IKARUS being in the hands of, the full game being in the hands of people?
It's daunting, but it's kind of cool as well. Like we've been working on this for like almost 4 years. If you kind of count the first illustrations and like riffing ideas, and the game has gone through 3 name changes. It's just been like a whole.
What was the first name? What was the first name?
The first name, I mean, it's so loosely connected, but the first name was Cyber Souls because at the time we were not thinking as much about the mechanics themselves. It was more like the kind of the design in the world and like the setting. And we were thinking about how cool would it be if there was like, Souls-like game were all the rage at the time. We'd bonded over quite a lot of like Metroidvanias with like Souls aesthetics and stuff. And so like, how cool would it be if there was like kind of cyberpunk, but like also like some demons or like some kind of mystical energy fused into it. And then in the future, The Surge, no one had heard of it. It's fine, ignore. But it was just like just thinking about this. And like even though the games and everything have changed and the gameplay is not the same, like it's not, the game is different. A lot of the design components, because I was really attached to them at the time, I've been able to bring them back in. So yeah, like it is loosely but definitely connected.
Nice. Dan, how does it feel to be almost at release point?
Yeah, exciting. Really exciting. It's always, you think it's there and then you do a bit of playtesting and a bug that you thought was gone 2 years ago somehow come back. So definitely the fun end of things now. We've designed everything, all the fun stuff, like what the card's going to be, what the upgrades, the enemies. And now we're like in the meaty end of, why is this not showing up in Chinese but showing up in Japanese? All that kind of stuff. But yeah, really excited though, because just ironing out the kinks now. And there's a lot of stuff in the full game that isn't in the demo, which people can already play. And we think like demo's good, first level's good, but like it all starts really kicking off later on. So also really excited for people to like get their hands on the full game and see how crazy things get. So yeah, really excited.
Nice.
Might get a bit less sleep the next few weeks than I normally do, but it's worth it.
Always the way. Always the way. IKARUS, for those who don't know, who haven't encountered the game yet, it's this fantastic shoot 'em up meets kind of roguelite deck builder. And it's kind of like, I would say that those are really quite kind of they're almost diametrically opposed genres in some ways, right? Like bullet hell is all about like, I'm not going to think. This is instinct. It's reflex. It's pure skill. And deck builders are a little slower, a bit more thoughtful. You are, you're building synergies between cards, and you're trying to be strategic and tactical. And obviously, yeah. Where did the idea come from in the first place to take these two genres and sort of squish them together?
I think it was a conversation in an afternoon in my old flat in London, and Dan and I were sat and we had this realization that no one's ever had, that like genre fusions are always like the most interesting games. Like the bringing together genres that don't fit together tend to create like a chemical reaction, and either you crash and burn dramatically, or you manage to make it work, and then there's something like really special that comes out of it. I think deck builder action games action games, not like shoot 'em ups, have existed for a while, right? Like I've grown up with Mega Man Battle Network. That was like huge inspiration throughout this game. I mean, One Step from Eden kind of picked that up later on and kind of did like something similar. And we've recently seen like so many more games that do deck building without directly bringing the cards in. So it felt like it was possible. And we're also massive Magic the Gathering nerds. I see the box behind you, but like we just at the time we were really, really into Magic. There was like a resurgence. So I think that's kind of things that led us to think about combining those two things together. But yeah, Dan, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I think it's what you said, Matt, about they don't belong together. And then we quite like the idea of the challenge. I think that was what we set ourselves. Like, if we're kind of going to design it, how do we make this work? And that was part of the fun for us. Like, how can we take these two genres and realistically make a game that isn't just some, fun 10-minute game on itch that's an interesting idea, but could actually work as a full game. And that was, I guess, the fun design challenge where we knew we could sit down, just talk at a couple hours, like, how does that work? How does that work? And it was definitely like an iterative process. Like, it definitely didn't work at first. Definitely the first few versions. Like, we used to have the hand in the game and you could like play your hand in real time and it worked, but it was a bit too, as you said, you don't have time to think. So like kind of playing around with that and making those design choices and then finally landing on something which we feel like really works was like kind of paid off in that we solved the puzzle, we think, and that was quite fun. So yeah, maybe a bit on our part, just making it harder for ourselves than we need to. But also, yeah, but I think as well, like as Sam said at the start, it's a chance to create something more unique when you do something that is hard to do. So yeah, I think that was the main reason we did it.
I think you get that awesome feeling from like both sides, right? So you get the awesome feeling when you're, because there are really nice dodge and parry mechanics within the game as well, which adds a whole nother level to the kind of shoot 'em up experience. So yeah, when you're doing the bullet hell dance and you're weaving your way through those kind of projectiles, there's a thrill that comes from that, and obviously we'll come on to the awesome soundtrack that accompanies the game in a little bit. But then there's also that just the ultimate satisfaction of, oh no, I am this close to death, and then you remember, hang on, I've still got my entire hand just to deploy, and you've built up this amazing synergy, or you luck into it. Sometimes that's the best as well, and it's just like death, mega neon death for your enemies, and that's very satisfying. That's very, very satisfying as well.
There's a few things in that, like the dodge and parry. So I mentioned Cyber Souls earlier. Like, I think when we brought this game in, so when I'm sure we'll get into like inspirations later. When we say bullet hell, the bullet hells that I've grown up with are more like side-scrolling bullet hell games, and more like shoot 'em ups. Like they're more shmups than like bullet hells. So they were more like Metal Slug or like Mega Man Z and like that kind of thing. And so for me, it was an extension of like an action game. And so bringing in like dodge and parry felt like really logical things to bring into like an action game. And when we saw Saros announced like very recently, and we saw the gameplay, and they'd gotten to the same like parry answer that we had gotten to, it felt like we were vindicated. It was like this was it. Like it was missing this whole time. So no, that was a really cool moment. And I guess like the interesting thing about those cards is that we realized very quickly by giving all these tools like a really strong hand to the player becomes really, really powerful. And so then you have to balance that with really, really tough enemies. And like increasingly, like the bullet hell thing made sense because like, all right, well, if the player is going to be overpowered, then the enemies need to be like absolutely cracked as well. And that's kind of where we got to.
I think it's a really interesting thing, right? Because you have, let's talk about balance for a bit, because you've obviously got the skill-based mechanics of a shmup, and then those sort of the luck of the draw, the RNG mechanics of a deck builder. How did you guys talk a little bit more about how you guys managed to balance those two things out and what the kind of process was there?
It was very iterative. I think that's definitely the first word I'd use. We started enemies so I think that at the beginning the power level was really low because we were kind of trying things out and we didn't want to like move too fast. We honed in on making the game feel good. I think like it was ultimately a game is there to be fun, and so we wanted to make it fun for the player. So we started in like powering up the cards that the player could use, but then that kind of like brought out how weak the enemies were in comparison. And then if the enemies are too weak, you're not actually feeling anything by overpowering them. Like it's all about the scale of the challenge and getting above that challenge. And so like some of the initial changes were really simple, and they were literally like increasing the health of enemies. But I mean, you don't want bullet sponges either, so like it had to be also like how to make the enemies challenging without just being boring. And trying to bring it. And the good thing about the bullet hell thing is that there's a visual element to bullet hell as well. So trying to make like aesthetically interesting and gameplay wise challenging enemies as well. And just like a final one was the bosses. Like we brought in bosses and elites a lot more. Like there's you fight 3 elites in the first level plus a boss, and all of those are like kind of very detailed, very like thought through enemies. They've got lots of health, they've got lots of moves, and they've got like interesting move sets, all of them. Like they're completely different. And so yeah, completely different challenges for the player to kind of get through as well.
Nice.
Yeah. I'd say like on the RNG point, I think like actually you definitely is a bullet hell shoot 'em up, so skill's important. But I think the good thing about, as you said earlier, Matt, kind of you can happen upon, as you can on all deck builders, sometimes the right cards, the right upgrades just come up and you get a powerful build. And I think the cards and the chance to build your deck become really powerful. I think hopefully is a bit of a way in for people who aren't like hardcore bullet hell shoot 'em up players. That means they can play the game. Maybe they're more familiar with deck builders. They can get into that. They've got those cards. Okay, like they really help you in the game. Like they can heal you. Are build you can make if you're bad at shoot 'em ups. You can get heals, get shields. If you're really good, you could go for like decks that like the drain rage decks where you can use your health to like attack the enemies because you're feeling cocky and you don't think you're going to get hit. So we think the deck builder actually adds that element of you can make this game, you can play more defensively and carefully with the deck, or you can play more aggressively if you're good. And I think at least the way we've designed the cards and the enemies, like there's no randomness in like how much damage you're going to do the cards. So it's still very like, I know is this deck going to work? What's going to do to your enemies? And your skill then kind of helps, I suppose, like balance that out with what you pick. And I think we also have the boon burden system in our game, which again is actually something we saw like Soros has put in recently, which is good to see. We definitely came up with it a couple of years ago, so we didn't copy it. And then that then helps you kind of say, okay, I'm really confident. I'm going to put on these burdens, which make the game harder, but then reward me with more score, more XP. I could do more damage. Or you could kind of put on buffs, boons, and that kind of makes the player more powerful, but then maybe you're not going to be able to compete on the leaderboard as much, but that could like help you ease into it. Or you could do a mix of the two and try and balance the build. And that's another way to like optimize before the run even starts. Like how am I kind of optimize these boons and burdens that fit my play style, but then kind of maximize, the damage and score that I can get at the end.
I think it's a really cool thing to kind of be able to kind of customize your experience a little bit, because as you say, I think shmups and bullet hells in particular, they're very much a case of, right, this is the game, take it or leave it, and you're either like get good or don't, right? And it's quite in some ways, the OG Souls like of just like, no, we're not going to change. You have to change and you have to get better. But I do think like there's something to be said for allowing for multiple different strategies and multiple different approaches. And like I myself, I was struggling because I exactly as you said there, Dan, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna burn health and just become an offensive juggernaut. And actually that's not what got me through the demo. What got me through the demo was no, I need to turtle, I need to use my shields. And then potentially once I've built up enough shield, unleash hell. And that's what got me through to the end of the demo in the end. So like, I suppose, yeah, how much did you guys think in terms of kind of play styles when building the archetypes, for example, and when building the various different kinds of cards? Like what were what were the things that you looked at in terms of considering different ways that a player might approach this game and making it ultimately, and I think for the benefit, a little bit more approachable, certainly for folks that maybe looked at these games before and just went, oh, these might be a little too difficult for me. But IKARUS is still challenging, but it's definitely, I think, more approachable because it sort of opens its arms a bit and says, come try this. And if you fail, it doesn't matter because, and we'll come on to progression in a sec, but yeah, what did you guys look at when kind of scoping that out?
I think so we had 3 colors in mind. So we had 5 colors in mind. No one's ever thought about having 5 colors in a card game. But it was, so we kind of narrowed it down to 3 colors. And we had there was like a really figuring out the cards took like a really long time. We had like a broad idea of what red would do and blue would do and green would do, like broadly speaking. But then we had to kind of associate that to gameplay mechanics, like in game, what does it actually look like? And the good thing about the 3 colors is that you'd always have complementary things, and you'd be able to bring like a certain level of balance to each archetype. But also there's a trade-off. Like there's a color that you're missing, so there's like something that you can't do, but there's like 2 things that kind of complement that complementary. And what does that combination feel like? What is it meant to like kind of feel like? I think, and I'm sure Dan will agree, like the biggest thing about roguelikes and deck builders is synergies, is like kind of figuring out a combination of things that make you just absolutely scale way beyond where you should be, and that makes you feel amazing, and that's great. And so we really spent a lot of time thinking about how can we introduce as many synergies as possible, but also not go too wide, rather like kind of have clear idea of synergies that could be fun for players, and then just building on those to make sure that they're like satisfying. And through aiming for that satisfying, rewarding gameplay, I think we actually got to a place where it helps the player get through the level as well, like very naturally. So yeah, I think that would be my 2 cents.
Nice. I think in terms of so I touched on it briefly a bit there. I think IKARUS is probably more, and feel free to push back on this. For me, I think IKARUS is a bit more. It feels a bit more like a roguelite than a roguelike. Like it's not quite as unforgiving as a true roguelike, in the sense that your progression is persistent, and it is. We've got a hand up.
Oh no, that was just a sign to be like, I can take that question. I don't know if that's right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's fine. I won't do that.
But I meant, what I was going to say was like, how did you guys, determine where you landed in terms of temporary versus persistent progression? How deep you go into the sort of what can sometimes be a punishing loop of roguelikes to a bit more of what I feel is a bit more of a forgiving and persistent kind of way of rewarding the player. So even if you die early, you're still going to earn XP. You're still going to be able to take that to the temple. You're still going to be able to kind of build yourself a bit more up for the next run, and hopefully go a little bit further and punch a little bit higher on the leaderboards.
That was the last point, Matt. Like that was the one I was going to say. Like now, even if you haven't cleared the first level, you'll be on the leaderboard as well. That was like a recent change that we brought into like the latest patch. Yeah, like it is a roguelite. I think it is. Like it just is, because with the boons and burden system, with the skill points, we've made sure that there is like persistent progression. I think like roguelikes are fun, and I think like the really hardcore, no persistent progression of roguelikes can be fun. They also going to require quite a lot of time investment from the player, and it can be really, really like grating to just die and just not get good, but not get good enough that like you've got anything meaningful to kind of show for it. But what I will say is that the game actually gets a lot more fun if you push, you add burdens and you make the game harder for yourself. So like it's like you'll be able to clear the game with all the kind of boons that you'll be able to attach, and like all the kind of additional support. You will get through the game. But if you really want to compete with your mates on the leaderboard, then you have to crank up that difficulty. You have to beat your own time, and you have to do like the silliest, craziest like full glass cannon build. Potentially, I don't know. Maybe you can turtle it, but you have to go with like crazy builds to try to like clear the game as fast as possible. And I mean, as the dev, I'll say like this is probably where I've had the most fun. It's like because we've played the game 1,000 hours each. Like it's you get into a place where you just play it so much. But when we make it really really hard, it's still really really fun. So yeah. I'm a masochist, maybe. I don't know.
I can testify to that. Like I used to be okay. I'm not gonna say I used to be really good. I used to be okay at shoot 'em ups. You know, I played a lot of cave shooters and I played a lot of bullet hell, and I love R-Type to this day. But like over time, you have less time, and so like I swear I used to be really good at games when I was 18, and now much closer to 40, I'm like, oh, I don't have time to be particularly good anymore. But I will say that yeah, even when stuff gets, especially when stuff starts getting pretty hairy in Icarus, that's when I remember I have a parry and a dodge button. Because there were definitely a couple of runs early on where I kind of forgot that I had those things in my arsenal, and I was just like, wait, it's refreshed. I don't have to just sit here and weave. Oh yes, I have cards in my hand that I can burn and deploy many missiles all at the same time. Yes, and you're raining down Megadeth, and it's just the best. Anyway, let's talk actually about aesthetics, because Sam, you touched on it previously, and I think like, you know, both in terms of visual and sound design, these things are so important to all gamers, but to shoot 'em ups in particular, right? Because, you know, bullet hells require real visual clarity, immediate sensory feedback. You need to know where your ship is at all times. You need to be aware of enemy placements, hitboxes, projectiles, all of that good stuff. And then on the flip side, you have deck builders which require, you know, really clear UI readability. It needs to be intuitive. It needs to flow really, really nicely. And building your hand, deploying your hand in this sort of synergy of the two has to be quite a smooth experience. So how did you guys approach, you know, let's start with the visual design to kind of reduce friction and make both sides of that coin as kind of intuitive and easy to understand as possible?
I can definitely speak to like the designs from a gameplay perspective. So there's quite a lot of work that's gone into, first of all, redesigning the player character, to like just the proportions, the colors, the kind of the way it looks, to make sure that it's like visible, easy to grasp at all times where your player is. Same thing for the enemies as well, and there's like shaders and so on. Like, I've done quite a lot of work to make sure that at all times the enemies are very obviously there, really simple to see, really like clear color language as well. Everything like has consistent colors, so that you know like right away what is what. Try to avoid confusions as much as possible. I think I'm gonna leave it to Dan on the UI, because to be fair, like he's done quite a lot of that work, and it's been like an iterative process. But Dan, what have you got anything on the UI?
Yeah, UI is not a fun part of game development, I would say. But especially when we decided to make this game, I don't think we realized how much UI it's actually going to need. So I've spent a lot of my time doing UI. I've enjoyed it more as I've got better at it. But Unity doesn't make it easy. But once you know how it works, it's fine. And I think, yeah, we definitely, again, we changed it a lot. I think it's all about keeping it simple. I think originally, I mean, Sam did some really nice art that we used to use for like backgrounds of like panels and shops and such. Right? It looked really nice, but then when you're in the game, there's like too much there, and actually, you kind of want to keep that flow of the action. So like we've moved a lot more to like simpler UI where things just pop up, like the screen darkens a bit. Your choices are really clear. Like, do I buy this card? Do I buy that card? Keeping it really simple, keeping the text really big, and as Sam said, like color consistency, using icons in the game kind of cards as well. For example, like there used to be a lot of text in the cards and the upgrades, which kind of works if you're playing like a really, you know, hardcore deck builder and you want to explain a lot of these effects in detail. But actually, it needs to be something, it's a quick game. You can look at it quick. And once you know what the icon means, you know, oh, that's like ignite, or that shot, that's going to shot enemies. This means, you know, I can heal, draw a card. And like, probably there's a lot in it now. It's probably going to be more by actual full release where most of the cards are going to be more like icons and numbers. So it's like really quick visuals. I can see what this card does. I can quickly choose the order in my hand and it works. So I think, yeah, it's all about simplicity. I make it really clear. which is actually quite hard in the end.
I don't want to add Dan on this, but let's just say some Magic the Gathering players like to read their cards before playing them. And like it's on a classic kind of tabletop deck builder, you want the time to kind of sit down and have your strategy and just and that's part of the fun. But I guess like when we moved to an action game, it all had to make sense within like the really fast flow of things. And in terms of like how we approach the visual design, like I'd be remiss not to mention like inspirations that we had. Like I think we Mega Man, so I mentioned it earlier, Battle Network had figured it out like 20 years ago or like 30 years ago. They kind of figured out like what that kind of UI actually should look like in broadly. Like the filling deck gauge, like that's it's heavily inspired, to be honest. Like that's kind of an homage almost, because I'm like that's like one of the core memories of my childhood. But then also like the kind of number point, I think we've seen more games that do with cards like kind of more skill-based kind of choices and simplifying the card as much as possible so that it computes within like the player's brain as a move as well as a card. Yeah.
And how, I suppose, one of the things about shoot 'em ups and this, if you take that genre in particular, let's talk a little bit about the art design itself. Like, how do you go about making a visual identity that allows you to stand out in a genre where realistically, and this isn't to disparage any game in the genre, but a lot of games do look quite similar when it comes to shoot 'em ups and bullet hells. So it can be a little difficult to distinguish if you're not versed between various different games. I think one of my favorite things about Icarus is that it's very striking. You see a screenshot, you kind of know it is Icarus. It is this game. Where did you guys start, and how did that process develop in terms of building that visual identity and trying to make it stand out from the crowd?
Spoiler for my potential later conversations. I think like one of the core things for me for this game, and I think that Dan too, like we've spoken about this before, it's been like earnestness, like just being really honest to what I think looks cool, and what game I would have like wanted to play, what game I would have wanted to make when I was like 8 or 10. And it's been like really, really honestly, like kind of letting out that inner side of me, and that applies to design as well. So I haven't actually thought that much about how to make it look different to others. If anything, like I've tried to make the kind of the ideas that I had come to the level of all of these amazing games and art out there. Definitely, like I grew up in Japan. Grew up with Japanese games, and there's definitely like a lot of referencing there and a lot of like thinking about that kind of world, but I've internalized that over time as well. And yeah, I think like the pipeline that I used to get the models into like sprite sheets, I worked quite a lot on that pipeline, and have learned 3D modeling. Like just I thought it was going to be a way to make the enemies easier. Instead, I just got like a lot better at 3D modeling, and have just been making like kind of pretty wacky design in 3D. It's been fun. I feel like the originality was a byproduct of just trying to push the designs to like as personally cool as I could kind of make them. Definitely with visual clarity and coding in mind though. Like it was also very much having to work within constraints, always like an interesting, way to get like interesting output out there as well. So.
Nice. Let's pivot from the visuals into the sound, because for me, I'm a massive fan of music in all, I suppose in all kind of entertainment and art mediums, right? Like music's such an important part of my favorite games and my favorite films and my favorite TV shows, etc. But in arcade shooters in particular, music dictates momentum, right? It's so primal, and the beats and the RPM, it triggers and it fuels adrenaline, and it helps really give you a nice sense of momentum in what are for the most part sort of linear scrolling games. How important was nailing, I suppose, let's first talk about the soundtrack, but then also the sound design itself, and kind of the the noises of lasers firing and enemies exploding, but yeah, how important was it to consider like the sound for this kind of game, and what were the challenges that you guys faced in terms of developing that?
Yeah, I think you nailed it for me, Matt, that I think about music, any kind of content, the music's so important. Even I think when I was a kid, before I learned how to make music, that was always the thing I remembered the most. Sometimes I would leave my like Mega Drive playing Sonic just with the soundtrack on, just because I wanted to hear it rather than play the game. I think actually, like to this day, like I'm still very influenced by those kind of Mega Drive games like Sonic, and then also like a lot of Dreamcast games. Like I guess you can't say as much in this game, like Jet Set Radio, Phantasy Star Online, like a lot of that kind of jazz fusion, Japanese jazz fusion stuff. Uh, I think for Icarus, a lot of it is then, thematically, aesthetically, we have a lot of kind of, more like traditional Eastern kind of vibes mixed with like cyberpunk. So I kind of want to reflect that in the music. So bringing a lot of like shamans and like, like drums, kind of more like old school drums, but then trying to bring in like synthwave into that, which again, kind of the same with art. I wasn't trying to nail this like homage. I think I was like, does this sound cool? And we thought it sounded cool. But I think you're right that it also needed that momentum. I think when you get into the later levels, whereas this level, we wanted the music to reflect obviously fast paced for the nature of the game, but what's the vibe of this level? So like the first level, the music, it's fast paced, but also quite airy. You're flying through in the outside. It's quite like, feels like, I want to feel like you're flying through loads of bullets and killing enemies. And then some of the later levels, things get a bit more gnarly and industrial, and the music reflects that and definitely bring a lot more industrial metal while still keeping those kind of like similar beats. And I think as well, like more recently, games like Hollow Knight and Ori, but also some of the old games I used to love, like Skies of Arcadia, like really relying on like, yeah, really big, and Final Fantasy games as well, like motifs, right? That kind of like using these same melodies over and over again in different ways. And actually, I found it really fun as someone normally like outside of game development who just makes rock music with my friends in a clap band. Like this was a nice way. Like, I can actually get really experimental and wild with it and take these motifs and do all sorts of stuff. So trying to have like a through current of those motifs while also like mixing things around. And that's been really fun. I think, yeah, really important for this kind of game because you're going to hear it a lot.
That's exactly it, right? And you go like, as you say, with Final Fantasy, but even like Koji Kondo doing the work for Nintendo, and it's just the simple, because obviously back then they were constrained by the tech at the time, and you could only have so many tracks, and you could only have so many instruments, and so your melody needs to be on point, right? But and then kind of time has helped scale around that. But even now I can hear the kind of from the Icarus soundtrack, and it's crafting those earworms, man. It's really good stuff. I wanted to ask, like, with that in mind, and you mentioned a couple of game series there, but what other soundtracks do you think do this really, really well? Like what are the video game soundtracks? I think, and this is a good segue into a conversation around inspiration, I suppose. What are the video game soundtracks that really appeal to you? Like for me, Journey, diametrically opposed from a genre perspective, but that was for me a really nice synthesis of sound and also aesthetic design. But then this incredibly emotive literal journey. But yeah, what are those games for you?
I'm sure Sam will have some as well. But for me, definitely, I think some of the ones I just mentioned, like more recent, like Hollow Knight, I think obviously an amazing game, but the music, it makes that game, I think, like, no offense to the other developers, but I think the music in that game is like, it adds to the atmosphere so well. And like the boss music is so intense and so good. I think Sam and I lived together during COVID, and we listened to the Hollow Knight soundtrack a lot while cooking. So that it's actually one of the things that, even though it's like the music, one of the main things that influenced like we want to make a game, because I made music, Sam does art, and then no one was listening to my music. No one was looking, well, some people were looking at Sam's art. And then I think it was a bit of like, you know what, a video game is actually a great place to bring those two together. We'll just have to do that little pesky bit of learning how to code. But so it's really fun to like bring that in. But I think, yeah, basically the ones I mentioned, like Sonic, I still listen to Sonic 1 and 2 soundtracks like every week. That's so good. Fantasy Star Online, like a big influence on me musically, even though I don't think I could make that music because it's kind of crazy. I don't know where those sounds even come from. But then, yeah, a lot of traditional RPGs like Skies of Arcadia, Grandia 2 as well is like a huge influence. So yeah, and I think try to bring that game where you could have gone to Icarus and gone like bullet hell, bam, bam, trance kind of Eurovision, but it's good, it works. But like, actually, what if you tried to have that kind of music, but try to bring like orchestral stuff mixed in with more like
Some acoustic
shamastans and
strings. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And like at first I wasn't sure if it's worked, but I feel like it does. And yeah, I don't know, Sam, you probably have some influence as well. He does give me a lot of notes on the music. I don't always listen to them, but I try to.
Yeah, it's I'm so glad that you mentioned Hollow Knight because and the COVID example especially because that was literally like, what I was thinking about as well. We used to make pasta and while we were waiting for the pasta to cook, we'd just be like dancing around on like some kind of some of the Hollow Knight tracks, which I could name, but I'm not gonna for this podcast. But it was really good fun. And I think like I was thinking about other soundtracks that I still listen to right now, like on a daily, like Katana Zero. It's just the kind of more recent, like really bass heavy, kind of cyberpunky. Actually, well, speaking of that, Cyberpunk 2047, like actually has a sick soundtrack as well. That kind of I don't know what the genre is. Like really industrial, really like heavy kind of basses. Really fun. Gets you in the mood, gets you in like the kind of focus, locked in. Journey is sick. Journey is like a really sick soundtrack. Doom is probably like one of the most recognizable soundtracks for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You definitely
2016
bring Doom in to some of the later levels as well.
the 2016 version sick, but OG is also really, really cool. So yeah, that's it for me. Music. That's about it.
And then I suppose like more broadly, you've touched on a few of them over the last half hour, but like what I suppose were the games that you looked at when kind of considering Icarus in totality, like both from shoot 'em ups, deck builders, everything kind of in between. What were the games that you kind of looked at and went, oh yeah, if we take bits from that, or like I really love that in there, and we just sort of all add them to this mixing bowl and turn it into this wonderful game.
Yeah, I think so. Obvi, Slay the Spire. I think like we were talking about this, like what were the inspirations with Dan, and it's a bit vague to say Slay the Spire, but it's true. Like it really just established so many of like the kind of core mechanics of like what a roguelike deck builder should be like, and like looking at the augment system, for instance, like the kind of relic system in Slay the Spire was just so good that it didn't like it was hard to think about things we wanted to change about it. It was just really perfect. And it's just been, well, I guess it's just been taken onto like so many other roguelikes as well, right? It's just kind of cool. Big up Wild Frost. Like in terms of modern deck builders, that was a gem that we found that honestly it's still kind of, I think it's found its audience, but still I think criminally underrated, and a really fun game. And especially for the design and like the UI, and they've spent so much time and care making it everything look and feel so good. It really showed us like the standard that was required in terms of like game feel and kind of polish. So yeah, no, big up that game. In terms of like shmups and kind of action and bullet hell, so Mega Man Battle Network, I'll keep saying it, and also Mega Man Zeds, because it was also really cool. More recent examples were like Star of Providence. So we did like a lot of research but like we haven't played as many bullet hells like Ikaruga and stuff. We're talking about it. We knew of it, and Dan's played Ikaruga. I'd play like the Mega Man stuff and like Metal Slug, but we actually looked out for bullet hell games. Star of Providence is sick. It was a really fun game. Learned a lot from it, and also Returnal as well. Like sick bullet hell game. We actually played it a lot with Dan when he first got PS5. Yeah, there's so many good games out there, man.
How about for you, Dan? Any additional ones stand out?
I think Sam's said the main ones there really in terms of what's influenced this game. It's quite funny as you're developing, you play new games. Sometimes you like take fun little bits. So I think the one Sam mentioned, but also like even Balatro, like obviously the game is very different to Balatro, but even how we designed the shop the shop wasn't in the game before we played Balatro, and we just loved the way it was done, and like we got influenced by that. I think as well, like more recently, been playing games like Cobalt Core, and like again the game's quite established. I played Cobalt Core quite late on, but there's all those little bits that just feel really good. And you're, oh wait, that would work so well in Icarus. So I think Cobalt Core was another like recent favorite that's kind of influenced me a little bit. But all the ones Sam mentioned, I say the kind of core influences, and obviously Ikaruga is a game I played a lot with my friends when I was a kid, and I was terrible at it. And to be honest, I'm not great at Icarus either. Like, it's a good job Sam's good, or else we wouldn't be able to test what happens when you finish the game, because I don't do it every time. But yeah, Ikaruga, massive influence, and like even like the name, like when you think about it, to come to it, it is a little bit of a homage to Ikaruga as well. But kind of, we like the name. We had the idea of kind of this ancient spirit going towards the sun goddess, and it's kind of like, oh, that's like Icarus is the Greek mythological being, but it also is a little homage to Ikaruga as well.
Love that. And yeah, it speaks as well to the risk versus reward sort of nature of some of the builds and archetypes. And Sam, you mentioned the glass cannon kind of build, like, yeah, good stuff. We're going to wrap up, but before we do, I've got two quick questions before we go. So I guess number one, I kind of want to ask you guys, like, what's your favorite thing about Icarus? It could be like a mechanic, system, a card, a synergy, or maybe even from the dev process, the thing that you're most proud about. But yeah, what's your favorite thing about Icarus?
I mean, I have one on the dev process, but it'd be so boring that I'm not going to say it. It's just like a pipeline and how fast I managed to make it. No, I think one of the things that Dan said at the end on the kind of Icarus is a Greek myth, but everything in the game is like kind of Japanese mythology based. I'm mixed, like Japan and Western, and for me, like kind of this dual culture, dual nationality has always been like a really personal thing to me, and they've like ups and downs, and always kind of felt really attached to both cultures. And so the idea of fusing these things together, fusing the cultures together, was also like fusing the gameplay of the games that I used to play as a Japanese kid, like 20 years ago, with the modern Western games, and trying to create this something like that really felt authentic and true and reflective of like who I am as a person. Was like, that's what Icarus was all about. The creative process, right? Creative expression. And I feel like we got there. I feel like we managed to make something that's truly unique and fusional. So yeah, but the pipeline was really cool also. It's like really, really, really good.
I feel like Sam gave a really profound and heartwarming answer. I was just saying, I really like the parry mechanic, actually. Yeah, it's quite, it feels really nice when there's a shit ton of I probably shouldn't say. There's a lot of bullets, and then you kind of, it's a bit like clutch parry, and then maybe when you parry, you can draw cards faster. You do that clutch parry against the boss, you get more cards, you turn the run, and it just feels really good. The little slowdown.
I was going to say the little slowdown is really the little boom as well. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just it's so simple, but yeah, I still have fun doing it after 2 years. So yeah, I think that's my favorite one.
I love that. I think I have one as well, which is just anytime I get some good synergy and deploy just a massive rain of fire. Like, that's just anytime I'm just like an overpowered beast. I'm a simple man. Just give me mega lasers and meteor rain. That's yeah, bring the rain. That's my favorite. Especially if I'm in a tight spot. I just suddenly remember, I have these. Go burn 4 cards and make it rain. Just the best. So there we go. Yeah, we've got something truly profound and awesome. We've got a nice simple mechanic done incredibly well, and we've just got bring in the rain. Icarus. Which leads us quite nicely into, yeah, let's wrap this up with, if you could sum up Icarus in 3 words, what would they be? Sam, let's start with you.
Yeah. So I've thought about this one a lot. Earnest, because I feel like we've earnestly tried to make a game that we would find fun, and we've been really, really kind of laser focused on that. But also satisfying, because it's always been about making the game as satisfying as possible for the player. And I guess that is stylish because you want to do all of those things, but also feel really cool doing it as well.
Dan?
I think Sam's words were all great. I think I have 3 different ones. I'd say like synergies, because that's what it's all about. Like bringing it all together, making that build, and having the synergies work, and then working a bullet hell. When that happens when I'm playing it, it feels like, yeah, like this is what we're trying to do. It took 2 years, but it's there. And it just feels so nice when it comes together. Adrenaline, just because I use that word all the time, like when we were pitching the game and Steam, just like that's what we're trying to create. Like we want the heart to be pumping while you're playing it. Like we don't want it to slow down. We want to feel good, like get in the zone. And then finally, I think just robots. There's a lot of robots in the game, and robots are pretty cool. So yeah, I think I'd go with that. Especially some of the elites and bosses, and also the ones that come later in the game, in the full game. Sam's gone crazy on the 3D modeling, and it gets pretty nuts. So yeah, lots of cool robots as well.
Robots. Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for watching. IKARUS, the demo, is out now. It's featured as part of Steam Next Fest. Go download it, go wishlist it, leave a review, tell your friends. And yeah, it's we'll have more info on the release date dropping very soon in the near future. But yeah, thank you very much to Sam, Dan.
Thanks
This
so
has been a
much.
lovely little Tiny Dragon Fireside chat. And yeah, go play IKARUS, guys. I'll see you on the leaderboards.